Good morning. Today, I'm going to do a deep dive into the Sierra Leone Civil War, a conflict that lasted from 1991 to 2002 and became one of the most brutal wars in modern African history. Over 11 years, the war devastated communities, destroyed infrastructure, and left lasting impacts that can still be seen today. To understand why the war began, we need to look at Sierra Leone before 1991. The country was rich in natural resources, especially diamonds, but much of the population remained poor. Corruption within the government, weak leadership, unemployment, and unequal distribution of wealth created frustration among many citizens. These issues made it easier for rebel groups to gain support. In 1991, the rebel group known as the Revolutionary United Front, or RUF, entered eastern Sierra Leone from neighboring Liberia. They were supported by Liberian leader Charles Taylor, whose involvement helped expand and intensify the conflict. Several key figures shaped the course of the war. Foday Sanko led the Revolutionary United Front and became one of the conflict's most recognized figures. President Ahmad Tejan Kaba led the government during much of the war and worked with international allies to restore stability. Charles Taylor played an important role by supporting rebel movements and profiting from conflict diamonds. Another important figure was Johnny Paul Koroma, who led a military coup and later worked alongside rebel groups. Most fighting took place in eastern and northern Sierra Leone, particularly around diamond-rich areas such as Kono and Kailahun districts. These areas became major targets because controlling diamond mines meant controlling money and weapons supplies. The border with Liberia also allowed fighters and weapons to move between countries. Throughout the conflict, several major events changed the direction of the war. In 1991, rebel forces launched their first attacks. In 1992, soldiers overthrew the government in frustration over poor military performance. In 1997, another coup placed military leaders and rebel forces in power together. One of the most devastating events came in 1999 during the Battle for Freetown, where rebels attacked the capital city and committed widespread violence against civilians. Peace negotiations followed with the Lomé Peace Agreement in 1999, but fighting continued for several years afterward. The impact on civilians was catastrophic. Over 2 million people were displaced from their homes, while thousands were killed or injured. Many civilians experienced kidnapping, forced labor, sexual violence, and attacks on villages. Children suffered heavily during the conflict, with thousands forced into becoming child soldiers. One of the war's most horrifying features was the widespread use of amputations as a tactic to terrorize communities. Access to healthcare, education, and food also collapsed across large parts of the country. Unlike wars that relied heavily on advanced technology, the Sierra Leone Civil War was mainly fought using small arms and guerrilla tactics. Common weapons included AK-47 rifles, FN/FEL battle rifles, G3 rifles, and RPG-7 rocket launchers. Machetes were also frequently used and became associated with many of the war's atrocities. Because many weapons entered through illegal trade networks, armed groups could continue fighting for years. The war finally ended in 2002 through a combination of international intervention, peace agreements, and disarmament programs. The United Nations sent peacekeeping forces while the United Kingdom deployed troops to help stabilize the country and defeat rebel advances. Programs were introduced to collect weapons and reintegrate former fighters back into society. In January 2002, President Ahmad Tejan Kaba officially declared the war over. Although the fighting ended, the effects of the conflict are still visible today. Many survivors continue to live with physical injuries and psychological trauma. Rebuilding schools, hospitals, and infrastructure took many years. Poverty and economic challenges remain significant issues. However, international justice efforts, including the Special Court for Sierra Leone, helped prosecute leaders responsible for war crimes and created greater accountability. In conclusion, the Sierra Leone Civil War shows how corruption, inequality, and competition over resources can lead to devastating consequences. While the country has made progress since 2002, the conflict remains an important example of the long-term effects war can have on both people and nations. Thank you for listening.